Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. Please make yourselves comfortable and thank you for joining the launch of the report today. We will give everyone a chance to join before we start. And while we wait for everyone to settle in, please introduce yourselves in the chat so that we can see who is joining us today. Once again, very welcome and thank you for joining this launch of this joint report by HURIDOCS and Open Technology Fund. We'll give it 1 minute or so for everyone to join, and then we will start. Welcome, everyone. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. We will start in a couple of seconds. Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, I think we can start. Hello again, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, bonjour, Yambo, Dumela. My name is Yolanda Boysen, and I'm the Director of Development and Communications at HURIDOCS. It is an honor and a pleasure to welcome you to this launch of a joint research report, which is the result of a collaboration between Open Technology Fund and HURIDOCS. The report, Use of Digital Security Tools by Human Rights Defenders in Africa Context, Lessons from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Kenya, Senegal, and Zimbabwe, was authored by Tomiwa Ilori, who joined HURIDOCS as a senior fellow as part of the Information Controls Fellowship Program. The IFCP program is an initiative by the Open Technology Fund, and it cultivates research, outputs, and creative collaboration on topics related to repressive internet censorship and surveillance. Allow me to hand it over to our speakers who will be welcoming you today. It is my great pleasure to introduce Wei Fan, a senior program manager at OTF. Wei and the team at OTF were instrumental in realizing the IFC fellowship and the resultant research which we are discussing and launching today. Wei, thank you so much for joining us today. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Yolanda. Hello, everyone. My name is Wei Fan. I'm a program manager at Open Technology Fund. I'm kind of leading the Information Control Fellowship Program under Open Technology Fund. A few introduction about Open Technology Fund and the fellowship program, if folks are not familiar with our organization. Open Technology Fund is a US-based nonprofit organization that funds internet freedom and security technology development. Some kind of well-known tools in this space are Tor or Signal. And in order to support the development of these tools to meet the demands of the at-risk communities on the front line, we also support research work that kind of feeds into the tool development. So Information Control Fellowship is a program that we introduced 10 years ago. We basically want to set up a program that introduce relatively new people relatively new to the internet freedom space to collaborate with well-established organization in the space. So to understand different information control mechanisms implemented in different parts of the world, particularly in internet repressive environments. We have been supporting great great research coming out of it. And many of the fellows has grown into different roles, important roles in the internet freedom space. I'm really glad to see the collaboration between Tomiwa and HURIDOCS. And I think the internet freedom space in Africa is very much under-researched, understudied. So we really appreciate the focus and the thoroughness of this particular research. And then also looking at how activists actually on the ground in different countries and using the digital security tools that have been supported and developed by different funders in the space. And thank you again for HURIDOCS for supporting Tomiwa for this excellent research. Yeah, I think that's it from my end.
Thank you so much, Wei. HURIDOCS is grateful to have hosted Tomiwa for the past year and to be part of such timely and much needed research. I'm now handing over to Dana Ingleton, who is the Executive Director of HURIDOCS and who have been very supportive of this project that interrogates the usage of digital security tools in different country contexts, but also ultimately points to key actions we can take to collaboratively build tools that are not only technically sound, but also user-driven and that speaks to the needs of human rights defenders in African contexts. Dana, thank you for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Yolanda, and thank you so much to Wei and OTF and to Tomiwa and to everyone who took part in this research. Welcome to you all and thank you for joining us today. As Yolanda mentioned, I'm Dana Ingleton. I'm the Executive Director of HURIDOCS. And I really did just want to take a pause to say thank you so much to OTF for the incredible fellowship program that really facilitated and allowed Tomiwa to be with HURIDOCS over the last number of months doing this research. This is not my first time working with an OTF fellow, and on a personal note, I really hope it's not a last, because it is such an important program of work for this kind of research and other research that our sector desperately needs. At HURIDOCS, we support human rights defenders and human rights activists around the world to collect, organize, and use information for justice and accountability. But I think important to this research is to remember that documentation isn't just about collecting information or gathering facts. It's about also protecting those who are gathering them. And that's why this research matters so much. Digital security, though often seen as a technical issue, is much more than that. It's a political one. It's about power, it's about access, and the risks that people face and HRDs face when they're exposing injustices. This research, led by Tomiwa and supported by OTF, is important because it takes on that political nature and it centers defenders in DRC, Kenya, Senegal, and Zimbabwe, where the stakes are particular and the stakes are high for those collecting information. This research looks not at just which tools are being used, but also why defenders are choosing them and what makes them usable and relevant and safe. And that is such an important piece in having sort of human-centered approach to digital security. It's an interesting one because HURIDOCS itself is not a classic digital security organization. But we do build documentation tools, our flagship tool, Uwazi, for example, and we want to make sure that our tools are part of the digital security ecosystem and that our tools fit into the toolbox of digital security tools being used by defenders around the world. This means that we have a responsibility to ensure our tools are strong and a reliable link in this chain of protections that human rights defenders need and use. We want to ensure that security is built in from the start and it's not a bolt-on at the end, and understanding, particularly as we'll get into, some of the findings around co-design and inclusive design are really important for organizations like HURIDOCS to be the partner that we want to be in this space. So just an invitation for today, we're so proud to have supported this research, and it's been so wonderful having Tomiwa doing this research under the HURIDOCS umbrella, and to all of the activists that he's worked with around. We were so incredibly honored to be able to be part of this conversation. Really excited to hear from all of the panelists today, to hear the conversation, to hear the reflections, the real deep reflections on what these findings are, and not just what they are so that we have them on a shelf, but so how we as a community can implement them in our work. So with that, I'll wrap up, but thank you so much to you all for joining, and really looking forward to the rest of the conversation.
Thank you so much, Dana. And now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Dr. Tomiwa Ilori, Senior ICFP Fellow, who was leading this important research for the past year. In this report, Tomiwa examines how human rights defenders in African contexts, specifically in Democratic Republic of the Congo, Kenya, Senegal, and Zimbabwe, use digital security tools to protect themselves in high-risk political and digital environments. The methodology included the use of existing literature, survey responses, and interviews with human rights defenders, more than half of them women, as well as developers of digital security tools to highlight key challenges. These include pervasive state surveillance, limited access to digital infrastructure, low digital literacy, and the technical complexity of existing digital security tools. Apart from highlighting the numerous challenges and barriers to tool adoption and usage, Tomiwa highlights that there is a strong interest between human rights defenders and tool developers to collaborate, co-design, and prioritize digital security training to improve usability. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Tomiwa to discuss the findings and his recommendations.
Thank you very much, Yolanda. That's very useful. I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to add at this point. That has been captured quite effectively. But yeah, before I go on, my name is Tomiwa Ilori, and it's a pleasure to be here. I want to say thank you to all the colleagues that have made this a success. It's been a pleasure working with you. And going straight to the discussing the findings. Like I said, Yolanda has laid a very useful foundation. But I'd like to go into, to start with, I'd like to go into the motivation for this research in the first place. One of the motivations that brought this about was it is usually assumed that human rights defenders will always be fine, they will always figure it out, they are always going to be safe until they are not. And therefore, it became very important to understand how some of the strategies they use, including digital security tools, actually work for them in real life situations. And not just, broadly speaking, human rights defenders, but specifically defenders who work in politically repressive and underserved African context. So it became quite necessary to see how human rights defenders from different contexts, facing different barriers and challenges, intersecting ones at that, use digital security tools. Simply put, the purpose of the research is to investigate how human rights defenders use these digital security tools across African contexts, but zooming in on specific countries. And it seeks to identify what defenders need or what they envisage when they use certain tools. And the idea also is to present these needs to developers who develop these tools so that, in quote, like a consumer can then meet the manufacturer, if I can put it that way, and, have, even deeper conversations about how these tools are used and whether in the expectations of human rights defenders are met in this context. So that is the general idea behind the report. In terms of objective, one of the main objective is, broadly speaking, is to find ways to improve the digital security of human rights defenders, and especially African human rights defenders who are not usually surfaced when most of these conversations happen, and to look for ways where the digital security tools are not designed for, but designed with these defenders, especially in this context. In terms of methodology, the report reached out and received responses. In some cases, followed up with interviews with 41 human rights defenders across these 4 focus countries. Democratic Republic of the Congo, Kenya, Senegal, and Zimbabwe. And like Yolanda mentioned, more than half of the people reached out to were women. That was deliberate. And also, developers of more than 10 tools were also surveyed. The tools are Wala, Butterbox, Lithro, Mobile Surveillance Monitor, Shira, SMS Without Borders, that includes Relay SMS and Deco SMS, Tails, Tela, Tor VPN, and OASI. A table of description for these tools can be found in the full report, which I'm sure many of us have now received. And the distribution behind the tool choice is the ones, it's a mixture of the ones referred to by the human rights defenders when they were reached out to for feedback, and the ones that that make up both anti-surveillance and human rights documentation tools. And the reason for that is to find representative, to look at tools that are representative as much as possible, but also look at emerging ones that could also be useful to human rights defenders' work in this context. So existing literature such as laws, reports, and other sources of information were also used to develop the report. At this point, I must also say that the report does not in any way attempt to showcase all the contexts in Africa. No, that is not possible. There are several multi-layered experiences that human rights defenders face across the continent, and it's not limited to just the 4 country examples that were given. And when you have opportunity to read the report, it also is one of the reasons why one of the main suggestions for future direction for research in this area includes ensuring longitudinal research and studies. And what that means is, for example, the fact that these country contexts have been covered to a very limited extent in this research does not mean we can't come back in a few years to again reassess what the success and failures have been. The point is to keep digging deep rather than digging wide, to ensure that we find what works and what is lasting and sustainable among human rights defenders, tool developers, and even broader key stakeholders. To the main findings. The main findings reveal that 65% of the defenders interviewed are very confident that they are under state-sponsored surveillance. According to them, many believe that governments are expending public funds towards surveillance technologies. And of course, the justification given by the state actors is to protect national security. But there have been repeated evidence that point to the fact that some of these surveillance technologies are used to target human rights defenders. A number of examples were surfaced in the report, and it will be great for you to just have a look and see some of the feedback that has been provided by the defenders. And the bottom line, especially regarding this finding, is that human rights defenders in these countries do not feel safe doing their work. So another finding is that 80% of the defenders interviewed noted that digital infrastructure such as affordable internet access, affordable and accessible internet access, devices such as mobile phones and laptops, human rights technologies such as human rights documentation tools, anti-surveillance tools, anti-censorship tools, they still remain a major challenge for human rights defenders. For example, where there is internet, like Kenya, it is too expensive. Where it is a bit affordable, it is unreliable. In DRC, a survey respondent noted that you would have to walk for kilometers just to be able to make a phone call as a human rights defender. According to them, that was not sustainable, and it really affected the way they did their work. you need to do that much to be able to make just a phone call. It can be imagined what it means to send an email, let alone adopt digital security tools in those contexts. Devices also for work, such as mobile phones and laptops, are also super limited. And human rights defenders have to resort to low-cost devices, which clearly have less security features for them. So just because human rights defenders have to do their work somehow, they have to expose themselves to, digital threats, which is one of the challenges presented as a result of lack of access to digital infrastructure, which of course hinders these tools, the adoption of these tools. Another important finding was that only 20% of the defenders have advanced digital security tools. 40% have intermediate skills, while 40% have basic knowledge. The extent of digital security knowledge could improve the safety of defenders, especially women and those who work in rural areas. For example, those with advanced digital security skills also noted that they are able to recognize, identify, and circumvent unlawful surveillance. However, across the skill levels, the issue of access to continuous upskilling and capacity building regarding digital security is a huge challenge. Nearly all the respondents advocated strongly for continuous digital security training and upskilling for human rights defenders. In terms of tools usage, the popular tools used emails and social media platforms. They are the most primary digital tools used. However, in terms of digital security tools, majority use Signal, and while 40%, about 40% of the respondents, human rights defender respondents, also use VPNs like Tails and Tor. Also, other digital security tools used by these defenders include password encrypted emails and password managers. But overall, the feedback is that many of these tools, putting that on top some of the issues and challenges I had mentioned earlier, many of these tools are not only inaccessible, but their constant use, what new updates mean for human rights defenders and how they do that are a little bit challenging. Overall, many human rights defenders find these tools very, very complex in use. And of course, it goes without saying that affects the tool adoption. And also, another key finding that came up was the issue of peer adoption. That was also surfaced in the report. And what that meant was, it is not enough to be introduced to a new digital security tools that can keep you safe even from the worst of enemies themselves. It is also important that others are able, especially when such tools are communicative tools, when other human rights defenders do not know about these tools, or there is limited adoption among human rights defenders community, the usage for those tools will definitely drop. So that is also another thread that came out in the course of this project and working with human rights defenders in this countries. Another point is that tool developers were also surveyed, and they also demonstrated, 90% of them demonstrated that they are willing to engage, but they also engage human rights defenders, that is, in terms of how tools they develop work for them. But they highlighted that they face challenges such as limited funding and small teams. And, this is even more important given the current landscape for human rights and human rights funding across Africa and across the world at the moment. Funding at this point in time is very, very challenging, and we are literally finding systems, structures that have been built to support digital security over the years closing shop for obvious reasons, and this is also some of the issues that were surfaced by tool developers. They also say that, these challenges that they also face hinder their own ability to also, for example, localize tools as human rights defenders might want, and respond effectively to user feedback. They also mentioned, two developers, that is, there exist language barriers and lack of structured engagement platforms for further possible collaboration between both communities, that is, human rights defenders communities and two developer communities. And, now to the practical aspect of things. So what exactly should collaboration between these two key communities look like? One of the things that came up were, regular co-design workshops, especially that involves human rights defenders across various skill levels, based both in urban and rural areas, and workshop participation that involves that showcases clear gender representation. So these are some of the ways they think collaboration, both to developers and human rights defenders think co-design workshops can work and achieve the objectives of bringing human rights defenders and two developers together. And also there were conversations regarding community of practice models. So for example, from community of practice between human rights defenders themselves regarding their digital security and safety, community of practice between two developers themselves focused on human rights defenders who work in this challenging context, then also a cross-pollination of ideas or cross-pollination of both of these communities, developing community of practice that they can both work with, considering both of their realities. So as it stands, human rights defenders surface their issues, but that doesn't mean two developers also don't face challenges. But how can they then come together to look at these issues, the most pressing ones, the one they need to prioritize, and work their way through the complex situations. So all the respondents also believe that there's a need for both human rights defenders and two developers to come together, not just for co-designing, but also throughout the phase of product development, especially for digital security tools. And that could include the design, the deployment, and the regular updates necessary to ensure that tools are up to date. Now, in terms of way forward, the method for soliciting information reveal that there are significant challenges like the one I've mentioned, but at the same time there are also opportunity to create lasting collaboration between both communities. And this is strengthened by the which I think is one of the main highlights of this report. It is strengthened by the interest of both communities to actually work together. It's a different issue when you now have to put the interest or explain the interest and why it's important. It's already there. There's people involved, the community members of the community know why it's important. But at the same time, it is also important to note that while these are the key actors that should be ideally involved in this conversation, it also involves broader stakeholders such as civil society organizations, digital security trainers, funders, and government actors. For example, two developers will need to focus on tools that are designed together with human rights defenders all through the pipeline. And the aim ideally should be focused on, of course, security, privacy, and usability. And also, civil society organizations and digital security trainers can commit to more structured and continuous digital security training programs for defenders. There are quite intersecting challenges that many defenders face, especially in African context. Funders are also encouraged to provide more resources for long-term development. I mentioned this earlier regarding longitudinal research and studies, and improvement of digital security tools and training, while government actors must carry out reforms and engage in surveillance in a rights-respecting manner. I think these, as there are many people on this call who understand, who have said this, that probably sound as like a broken record at this point, but it has been said over and over with clear guidelines on what can be done by government actors to ensure that they carry out lawful surveillance, targeted surveillance as required by international human rights standards. Lastly, the report emphasized the important role of digital security tools in keeping human rights defenders safe, especially those who work in challenging contexts. It found that this is not a responsibility that is limited to just human rights defenders or tool developers, but also involves some of the key stakeholders I've mentioned earlier. More of these details you'll find in the report. And it is hoped that the findings of this report, and I hope you get to engage it more in more detail, will not only benefit human rights defenders or tool developers, but also communities who are constantly at digital security risks. So I am going to stop there for now, Yolanda, and thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much, Tomiwa. I just want to listen to you more. Do you really need to stop?
Sorry. Yeah.
But Tomiwa, the research speaks volumes, and there's a lot of food for thought as we navigate the complexities of digital security, not only for human rights defenders, but as you mentioned, the communities that they serve as well. In the next segment, we have 3 human rights defenders who will be reflecting on their realities. First, we have Arsène Tungali, who is the executive director and co-founder of RUDI International, a civil society organization in the Democratic Republic of the Congo focused on technology and human rights issues. After Arsène is going to lead the discussion, we will have Yikai Munetsi, who is a program coordinator at Nkabazwe Community Radio Station in Zimbabwe. And lastly, we have Christina Khan, who is the executive director of Amkeni Community Organization, a community-based organization which works on human rights and sustainable development in Kenya. So Arsène, I'm first going to give over to you. If you can please just share some of your reflections and your experiences. After you, we will go to Yikai, and then we will go to Christina. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Yolanda. Hi, everyone. And I want to appreciate Dr. Tomiwa for the, for the wonderful work done on these reports. I mean, I've been scrolling down. Of course, I read the summary, and then throughout the call, I've been scrolling down and up and down, trying to understand the findings. And this actually speaks about the real situation human rights defenders in the DRC, and I believe across the sub-Saharan Africa are facing. So my name is Arsène Tungali, based in the DRC. I work as the executive director of RUDI International, which is an organization based in DRC and working at the intersection of technology and human rights. So we do capacity building, research, and advocacy, among others. So it's just a few reflections because I believe human rights defenders in the DRC, and as I said, I think we are facing similar challenges across the sub-Saharan Africa. And of course, we do use digital security tools for many reasons. And one of the reasons is because we want to protect or to ensure our privacy when we communicate. We also want for our own security and even the security of our devices when we are using the internet broadly. But also we use digital security tools when we want to circumvent internet shutdowns or any other forms of restrictions. And so in the DRC, one of the tools people have been using in the past and for some specific period in our history was VPNs, which are these tools that help sometimes to circumvent disruptions and internet shutdowns, or whenever there is any platforms that has been blocked. Many others would like or are using antiviruses in order to protect their devices from digital harms, which includes malwares in their various forms. Or sometimes we also use password managers because we want, to be able to protect our password and therefore protect our online accounts. But a few challenges, and I was reading through the reports. Dr. Tomiwa mentioned many of the challenges that we are facing as human rights defenders, and I'm sure many others who are on this call will relate. One of the things that probably those who are, people need to know is the fact that accessing licensed tools is one of the issues many human rights defenders are facing, because to have licensed tools, you have to have the resources to pay for them, and so this leads many of us to be able to start using unlicensed software, which comes with their share of issues. The other thing I want to mention is the fact that human rights defenders are having lack of technical skills in using some of those devices or some of those tools. And also, sometimes you are not sure when you are surveilled exactly, but also even if you know that you are surveilled, you don't know how to behave because of lack again of technical knowledge, or you don't know who to reach out to. And lastly, I mentioned it, the lack of funding and resources, which leads many human rights defenders to use less secure tools, or end up using less secure devices because they can't afford paying for more secure devices or tools. So I'll stop from here. These were just a few reflections that speaking on my own experience as a human rights defender. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Arsene. This is much appreciated. Thank you so much for your insights. And next, we are going to go over to you, Kai, to please also share the reflections.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kai Munetsi. I am a programs officer at Ngavazwe Community Radio Station. And I'm also a journalist focusing on the impact of mining in Zimbabwe and its implications on the communities, especially youth and women. So I think a lot has been said already towards this report. And thank you so much, Dr. Tom. Why? Because I felt my voice. I felt like I said this, I said that, and I say that, and everything you said speaks to us, and it is true. And it is actually something for me to applaud you for, to actually involve young women. It is something that is never done. We do not have most documents that actually speak to us. So I'm actually feeling very important being here. So thank you so much for this. I think just a few reflections, but they've already been said. I'll speak to the issues of data expenses. In Zimbabwe, issues to do with data. That is very expensive. So even if we have the tools, we do not even have the means to actually use the tools. I'll also speak to issues of literacy because I work with grassroots women. I work with grassroots, other grassroots defenders, and some are in the marginalized communities, some are in the rural areas, and the issues of literacy speak volumes because they do not know how to even use a smartphone. Some of them, they do not even know currently that there is artificial intelligence, there is AI. And it's quite sad because how are they going to protect themselves? How are they going to promote the work that they do? So I feel like this report is actually speaking to such issues. There is also the issue of, accessing gadgets. Yes, in most communities that I'm working in, most human rights defenders, we are now talking of, the rural district committees. The women there do not even have, gadgets to use, because they say when you are married, your husband snatches away your phone, and they say because you practice prostitution and everything. And that on its own impact the knowledge or even the skills, even if we come as fellow human rights defenders to their areas to actually try to say, this is how we use Zoom, this is what is AI. They do not even have, the gadgets to use. So I think this is very extensive, and I hope this collaboration does not only stop here, but it will be a room to open doors, more areas of collaboration. How can we actually make women, I'm going to be biased towards women because, I'm seeing the gaps because I'm part of them. So thank you so much, Dr. Tom. You actually did a very, very good job. And thank you so much to the partners who also supported this and actually coming to the grassroots and speaking from with women like me who are actually in the grassroots, where, when people hear Zimbabwe, they think Harare, but here I am, so this speaks to us. So thank you so much. I'm done. Bye.
Thank you so much. And next up, we have Christina. Christina, please, over to you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And I would like to acknowledge the fact that Dr. or Comrade Tomiwa did a very, very wonderful job during the research. And here we are right now sharing our experiences and, of course, having to reach out to the human rights defenders that are mostly never tapped by other stakeholders. And here we are now to discuss. So the report, of course, I've gone through it. It's so great. Have reflected whatever that I had shared and have really spoke my mind and for others that I've engaged with. Firstly, my name's Christine Habuya. I work with Amkeni Community Organization as a executive director, and I am a human rights defender from Kenya, mostly situated in the coastal region of Kenya. So how we use the digital tools or in Kenya is first to secure, at least to secure our communications. However, we understand the fact that it's always never that secure, and how we do hope for it to be, but at least to secure a bit of our communications and our engagements, because right now in Kenya, being a human rights defender, you're being targeted. And of course, at least we use tools to anonymity, the location anonymity, at least VPN, so that we can have access to networks, because we've found times and actions whereby our locations, our phones have been tapped, we cannot communicate. And when you communicate, then your communications are already leaked, and one gets surveilled and then gets arrested or tailed to share intimidation and maybe be profiled. Of course, we use these digital tools for organizing, mobilizing for action, sharing and empowering the community on whatever that is important for the community to know, because apparently our leadership and even the persons in leadership and in government, they don't want the community to know whatever that it's supposed to be, yani it's meant for them, their rights, how the policies are being made. They don't want the community to go ask for accountability from their offices. And apparently that's so absurd from our leaders whom that we elect and those that are appointed to go and represent and work for the community. Of course, we use these tools for rapid action and solidarity and fundraising for support you know, during the uprising of Gen Z movement, the famous Gen Z movement, whereby we were asking our members of parliament to reject the rogue finance bill that was supposed and what to oppress the people. That's when we had a lot of killings. That's when we have a lot of abductions, bodies and youth found in quarries, people being killed, shot dead, others being tortured, and others we can't even find, at least 24 of them since the 2024 June. We cannot locate where these people are, yet the government of our land right now, they don't care. You know, we have challenges despite the fact that the youth are coming up, the young HRDs, the already veteran HRDs that are there, they are mentoring us, the young people, with information, with tools that we can use to ensure that the community are engaged. So the challenges, as I had said prior, there is a lot of surveillance. Actually, right now, the surveillance have really increased on the human rights defenders. Talk of the human rights defenders, right now I have colleagues or comrades who are have been arrested, have been summoned, have been taken to court with allegations and being having termed as terrorists or people who are funding terror activities, yet you find that there are videos of youths or gang groups who are around the social media, these young people exposing or saying that, yo, we have come, we have done whatever that you as our leader, mind you, this is an elected person, the person who is at government office, speaking and altering utterances that are so incisive, like shoot to kill, shoot these youths and kill them. Some another MP from Garissa saying that if I was the president, I would have killed the youths, at least 5,000 youths per day. And that's the time whereby the youths are so angry with the government, with whatever that is going on, with the operations and the bad leadership that we are experiencing in Kenya. And right now we have another MP saying that the president didn't say enough when the president said that the police can go on and shoot the youth to cripple them. The following day, this MP comes out and says, yo, Mr. President, you didn't say enough. I would say that the police, you should just shoot these youths, and everyone that comes to the street to protest, or anyone that comes to quest or speaks about accountability. We have seen uprising of Gen Zs, the youth and the young people from all over this country, in the 47 counties in Kenya, and most of them are just calls for accountability, calls for human rights, calls for justice. We've seen young people being targeted. They go to police stations, they are just killed, tortured. There is nothing that goes on. You find police officers shooting live, shooting the young people live, killing them, and there is nothing that is being done. Everything is just going on like normal, and you find our leaders coming out and blaming the young people for being at the forefront, asking for accountability, asking for justice, seeking that we have at least an accountable leadership and good leadership, an example for the young people. But you find, actually right now in Kenya, it's so scary being a human rights defender. You live, you don't know, anytime you can be abducted, anytime you can be just shot, killed, shot dead, anytime you can be summoned or arrested. and then being termed as a terrorist or someone who is funding terrorism. Personally, I'm among the victims since last year until now. So last year, everything of mine, I couldn't communicate. I couldn't even do transactions. So I had to get evacuated from where I stay to relocate to somewhere else so that at least to mitigate the security risks that were on my neck at that time. And even right now, as we are speaking, it's just recent, like 3 hours back, when my mobile money transfer started working again. So everything in here in Kenya is so worrying, and we request that at least we can have capacity building on digital security, because most of the young people, as we see them appraising and doing the good job to asking for accountability and justice, their security is not well off. We cannot even trace and secure our communications, our data in the gadgets that we are using. We don't know, or because some tools for security, they're so complex that someone, if is at risk, cannot easily communicate with another or even send a note that he or she is at risk and needs action from a comrade or from an institution. Of course, we need support to do more empowerment at the community, because right now, as we are seeing it, the community needs a lot of empowerment and, of course, goodwill from all over the organization, internationally, nationally, and those that are doing research, like how Tomiwa and HURIDOC, OTF have done. This is so great, because this is a platform for myself to reflect and even feel like I'm being heard. You know, these spaces really help us, even mentally, when we talk about these experiences that we have gone through. And being a woman or a female gender in this our culture or this country, especially the coastal region, in the coastal region, you cannot, as a woman, step forward easily and then start making influencing decisions, asking for accountability, challenging systems, challenging leaders. They start telling you that you as a woman, you don't have manners, you don't have morals, your parents have failed, you yourself, you cannot even engage in meaningful discussion. So this is a very good a platform for us, and I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Comrade Tomiwa, for the opportunity and for engaging with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tina. Hand over to Yolanda.
Thank you, Tina. And thank you, Arsene and Yukai. We really appreciate your interventions, and we stand in solidarity with you. And this is exactly why we are here, to look at this research, to see how we can improve the situation, and also see how we can support with these digital security tools and practices. I'm now going to hand over to Tomiwa to outline possible next directions and what lies ahead to make these digital security tools more accessible, effective, and in line with the lived realities that the human rights defenders in the African context face. Thank you, Tomiwa.
Yeah, thank you, Yolanda. So quickly, because of our time, I'm just going to share just very few insights. Of course, these are meant to get us thinking about, deeper issues, especially those that have been surfaced by the human rights defender themselves. So, for example, another action that can be taken going forward, and for example, is stakeholders, human rights defenders, and developers all invited to share reflections and suggestions, especially on the findings of this report. And also not just on the findings, but also ways that it can be taken forward. Some future directions have been shared in the field report themselves. And some of the ways you can do that is, for example, you can send an email to dedicated channels on HURIDOCS website. And also, another action that could be taken is co-design opportunities, some of which have been explained earlier, where both human rights defenders and tool developers can come together to work on issues of usability, accessibility, and local relevance of digital security tools. And also, more importantly, is civil society groups, funders, developers, digital security trainers, and also not limited to these suggested stakeholders, but if they are encouraged to join emerging multi-stakeholder platforms. For example, one major one that comes to mind now, especially as it relates to this conversation, is FIFA Africa, which usually occurs September every year. And it's going to be held in Namibia this year. And those are some of the places where you can do a deeper dive into some of these issues and, you know, frame some of the concrete ways forward. So, and lastly, also for updates on upcoming activities, opportunities, and collaboration, please also stay connected to HURIDOCS and Open Technology Fund platforms. I will leave it there for now and hand it over back to Yolanda.
Thank you, Tomiwa. I see we have reached the end of the webinar. Thank you for answering the Q&A in the Q&A section. I would just like to thank the Open Technology Fund for their support to realize this research, not to only analyze the situation, but to offer clear pathways to improve the security of human rights defenders on the ground. And Tomiwa, I want to thank you for being a great colleague for the past year. And congratulations on the launch of the report. I am honored to have been on this journey with you. And I would also like to thank each and every human rights defender from the 4 target countries who provided their valuable time and insights. Without your voices and guidance, this research would not have been possible. I would also like to thank the tool developers for providing their unique perspectives and for committing to collaborate to enhance these tools. And I would also like to thank the DevComs team and the colleagues at HURIDOCS who also provided their insights and who supported this fellowship. In particular, I would like to thank Dana, our Executive Director, Alejandra, our Communications Officer, Bono, our Senior Documentalist, and Anastasia, our Security Lead, for the support during this fellowship. Thank you, everyone. This webinar will be available on the HURIDOCS website, and we will share it with you in the next coming days with a blog post that Tomiwa has authored. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you being here with us today. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.